Stephen, thank you for this. I just got this today.
Fabulous.
But let's get to that. Maybe we start with, and I want to talk about the speed of trust, and then trust and inspire, which is your latest book. I think maybe we just start with, I know that you played a role in helping advocate and, let's say, market the 7 habits of highly effective people, which again was your father. I don't know what book was that, his first book or his core book. What happened with that?
That was his first book for a business audience, was the 7 Habits. And the thing about it, Wes, is he'd been teaching it, for about 10 years before the book actually was published. He was presenting all over on 7 Habits and kind of refined it and worked on it. And so there's already kind of a built-in audience of people that really liked it. And the book was the last thing to come. Usually the other way around, right? The book usually.
Yeah, I do remember. Yeah, I do remember that part of it. That's right. He'd been teaching that, and then so how did it go? So you ended up. Were you already then part of that organization? And then tell me that story.
Yeah, I joined out of Harvard Business School, got my MBA there. I'd been at Covey before I went to. Before I'd done, right out of undergraduate school, I worked at Covey for like 6 months. But then I got another job with a real estate development company in Texas, Trammell Crow Company. Then went to Harvard Business School. So coming out of Harvard, I kind of was weighing my options, and I had an option to go to Wall Street. I'd done a summer internship there. And that was fun, exciting. I had an option to go back to the real estate development company, and then my dad said, "Come join us, because we're about to launch the 7 Habits book." And I knew the 7 Habits book was going to go big, because for 10 years, everyone that heard it loved it, responded to it. And so I thought maybe I could be part of something that's exciting and that's, has a chance to make a dent in the universe, to quote Steve Jobs type of thing, make a difference, have an impact. And so I chose to join up with my father and his firm, Covey Leadership Center. And then I, did a number of things. I mostly initially sold and was a client partner and did sales. And then I led a sales team. Then I led the sales organization. And then I was asked to be the CEO to lead this and to try to scale the company, so that we went from Stephen R. Covey, the person, into Covey Leadership Center, the firm. And we went from 7 Habits, the book, into really a leadership development company that could work with people all over the world with 7 Habits and other materials for leadership. So part of my job was to really grow the business, scale the business, build a business model that worked. Because, Wes, we were so mission driven, and my father was so mission driven. We were doing all kinds of things that had an impact on people, but we couldn't make any money at it. It was a hobby.
Yeah.
You can only be in so many hobbies before, where you can't make money. And so we had to adopt the mantra, if there's no margin, there's no mission. So we got to figure out
no mission. I like that, actually.
Mission. And we figured out a business model to try to do this. That was kind of my role, coming from my background in business, to try to figure out how to scale this, build a business model that was commensurate with the impact of the content. That was the idea.
Well, so how big did that get? And then where did that lead to today? And are you still, tell me about what you're doing today.
Yeah. So we got to where we're, what was it, 112 million, which by leadership company standards at the time in the mid 90s, 1997, was as big as they got.
Yeah, it's huge. It is big.
And, operating all around the world. And then we merged our company with Franklin Quest, that had been the time management conglomerate, the old Franklin Planner and everything.
Franklin Covey Planner, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So we merged the leadership development company with the time management company to form Franklin Covey, and that was clear back in 1997. And Franklin Covey is still existing today, and it's really stronger than ever before. 25 years after the merger, and we're operating now in 150 countries around the world. As Franklin Covey, doing leadership development. and we still do time management as well. Just the tools has changed. No, not as many people use the paper planner. They use now other tools. But we did this, ran things for a while. I ran the training and education business after the merger, and did innovation and marketing and other things. But then I left on my own, and that's where I worked on the Speed of Trust book, created that, wrote that, published that, and formed my own firm, CoveyLink, and we started to do a lot of things all over. And then at some point, the Franklin Covey organization said, "Hey, how would you like to merge the CoveyLink business back into Franklin Covey, so we could really leverage this?" So I rejoined the mothership, if you will, but I kind of kept some of my own autonomy, so that I really, my role had shifted now to writing and speaking, whereas my first act was I was a business leader, and now I found my voice with Speed of Trust, and I had shifted my role. So I'm part of Franklin Covey. I just have some autonomy, so I can kind of do what I want, when I want, where I want, which I like.
So that's the full circle. That came back to Franklin Covey's global Speed of Trust, and that's what you have autonomy to run that piece of the business now.
Yep, to run that piece and to do my thing. And basically I write and speak. And I've kind of taken on the role my dad used to have. He passed away about 10 years ago, and I've kind of taken on a similar type of role. I'm not putting myself in his category. I think he's a unique contributor at a different level, but I'm doing a similar type of role of writing and speaking, as opposed to the business role, which is what I did in my first act.
Well, I want to talk about, so much of your writing is around trust, and both of your books have trust in the title, and it's such a huge piece of the equation. And I have a particular interest in leadership too. That I think when I was younger and being kind of entrepreneurial minded, I thought that leadership was just some inspiring, charismatic leader. And then I think that as I've grown over the years and learned that leadership is something you can learn and you can get better and better and better at. And I'm a big, big believer that we can all become much better at leading. That's how I want to dive into that with you, and I want to talk about this word trust and inspiration. I would say that for our audience too, because we're the Retire Sooner audience, and we have this mission to help 1 million people retire at least 1 year sooner. Now, we didn't account for the COVID early huge quit rate in America, and the retirement rate tripled under our guise. I don't think it was the Retire Sooner podcast. I'd love to give ourselves the credit. I think a lot of it was COVID. So I think we hit our million mark really quickly, but that was just demographics of what happened in the world.
Yeah.
But because and I know, and we'll get to that in a minute, but when you think about some of the advice that you've given over the years, and whether it's from 7 Habits that you have all taught about, or it's from your books, Speed of Trust and Trust and Inspire, for our audience, it's thinking about their next phase and trying to get to the next phase financially. What would you take from your teachings that would help them put themselves in a better spot in order to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, Wes, because it's so relevant to our viewers and listeners where they're at. So I would say this, that if you can, as a leader in your business, within an organization, wherever you might be, as you move towards retiring sooner. By the way, I love the premise of your podcast and what you're doing, Wes.
Thank you.
It's terrific, and you're really focused on helping people to achieve their goals, their dreams, and to do it better and sooner. And so this is what I'm suggesting, is that if today the kind of leadership that we need is what I call trust and inspire, we need to become trust and inspire leaders. The old style of leadership, what we might call command and control, doesn't work anymore, as if it ever fully really did. And so people that continue to lead kind of in a command and control way, and and authoritarian or command and control. And what's happened is we've become better at it, more sophisticated, more advanced. I call it enlightened command and control, which is a better version of it, kinder and
Yeah.
involves people a little bit more. But
Well, let's go. What's the old school? So, what is the old school command and control? And then I love this idea of that we've almost sugar coated command and control a little bit. So, what
Yeah.
is that? I mean, I guess we all know the old command and control is the 1950s, do it my way or the highway.
Yep,
What is
yep.
what is the sugar coated version of that?
Yeah, so I call the old one authoritarian command and control. And you said it, my way or the highway. It's more dictatorial. It's more that people are grateful to have a job and you bark out the orders, and that maybe worked in the industrial age, and because that was the norm and the societal expectations and the like. That over the years we've gotten better. Here's what we've done: we've added things like um, emotional intelligence, which is a big breakthrough. That's critical, and that's improved it. We've added things like mission to it so that there's more purpose and mission involved. That's a big breakthrough as well. We've added things like strengths so that we run with people's strengths, and that's a good breakthrough. So a lot of good additions to it, but fundamentally for too many, the paradigm, the mental map of how we view people, how we view leadership still hasn't fully shifted. We still view people as we're trying to, get work done through people, leverage people, get more out of people. People are in a sense a means to an end to accomplish the goals, as opposed to being one of the ends in and of themselves. Yes, we want to get the results, but in a way that grows the people. And so I call it, we've moved from authoritarian command and control to a more enlightened command and control, which is a better version of it, a much better version, but it's still treating people more like things, as resources. And to your point, we can learn to become good leaders. So, but we've also learned we can become good managers, and we need both management and leadership. We need good management, and we need good leadership. But you manage things, and you lead people. And the danger of a command and control approach, even enlightened, is that we tend to manage people a little bit like we would things. And when you manage people like things, then you'll end up with no people and lots of things because people won't want to be a part of it, especially today. They have choices and options to go to, be anywhere, work from anywhere. And they won't, this whole great resignation and the great reshuffling, reexamination, if people don't feel trusted and inspired, if they don't feel like they're being led as opposed to just being managed, they'll go elsewhere. And so I'm just saying for our listeners, our viewers, that if you can lead in a style of leadership that is relevant for our day, for our times, then you'll be a better leader. You'll be more successful, and you'll advance in your career. Your business will grow more because you're timely, you're relevant with connecting with people and how they want to be led today. If you remain trapped in the old style, even an enlightened version of it, you'll be less relevant, you'll less advanced in your career because you won't get the results and the outcomes, and the people won't grow. So this is all about accelerating that path, accelerating the growth of the business, accelerating the growth of your career by being relevant for the kind of leadership that's going to work today with people in this new world.
So Stephen, so let's go to this core theme of trust, because this is trust. It maybe is still, if you continue to evolve from command control to enlightened command control, and what you talk about with trust and inspire and the speed of trust is really kind of another evolution of that. And describe to our audience, if they haven't read Speed of Trust or your brand new book, how is that at the core of what we do? Are we, as leaders, are we supposed to trust that someone has our same end in mind? Are they the same mission? Is it talk to me about that level of trust from person to person?
Yeah. So what I would say is that, because Wes, you love leadership. The heart of great leadership is trust. Now you need to do more things, but if you haven't built trust, you're not leading. If there's not trust in you, you're not leading. You might be managing, you might be administering, but you're not leading without trust. I love how Warren Bennis put it. He said, leadership without mutual trust is a contradiction in terms. So trust is foundational. Now, so here's the way of thinking about it. It all starts first by looking in the mirror. Self-trust. Do I trust myself? Do I trust myself? And that's important for all of our viewers and listeners, that self-trust is critical. That's part of retiring sooner, is that, I have a sense of self, of who I am. I have confidence in myself, my character, my competence, my credibility. And the higher I move up in my character, my competence, so I'm more credible and have a higher self-trust, then the more impact I'm going to have, the more I can build trust with others, the more advanced I'll become in my career. And it's both the character side and the competence side. So it's not enough just to be honest and caring if we don't deliver and can't perform. So we got to make sure we have the competence side, and we're building our capabilities, our talents, our skills, our expertise, our knowledge, so we're always relevant in a changing world. And then we have a track record of results, of performance, so people know we do what we say we're going to do, we deliver. And that's the competence half of trust, and the character half. We want both. So that's the self-trust. And so the whole idea is, do I trust myself? And is it smart for others to trust me because of who I am? But then once you start with self-trust, you can now ripple out. I use a metaphor of the ripple effect. The drop of water comes down, the ripples, the waves, they start at the inside, they ripple out. I start with myself, and then I ripple out to my relationships, building that trust one-on-one. So I build trust in personal relationships, in one-on-one team relationships, so that people know they can trust me and I can learn to trust them. And that's both being trustworthy and being trusting to create trust in a relationship. And then I build it on my team. I ripple out from my relationships to my team. If I'm a leader of a team, I try to build a high trust team, because high trust teams can collaborate better. They can innovate better. You'll engage your people more. They'll perform better. Overwhelming data. You'll succeed better if there's trust. If you don't have trust, you're not really a team. You're just a group of individuals working on a project. Trust turns a group into a team. Then you move from your team to the other teams you interact with. You ripple out from there. Kind of the organizational trust. And then you move from your organization inside out into the marketplace with customers and partners. Build marketplace trust, customer trust, stakeholder trust. And then you ripple out from there into all society. So trust is created from the inside out. We look in the mirror, we start with ourselves, but then we ripple out at every level. And the way we're going to build it is we need to be trustworthy and we need to be trusting.
So does this help us unleash this, let's call it, the capacity and the potential of those around us? Is that a huge part of this?
It's a huge part of it. In fact, the subtitle of the Trust and Inspire book is How Truly Great Leaders Unleash Greatness in Others. So if you're a leader and there's all this potential and talent, creativity, ingenuity, capacity, energy, ability within your people, within your team, and too many leaders are back in the command and control. I try to contain people, control people. A Trust and Inspire leader is saying, how do I see that potential, that greatness? How do I communicate it to them so they come to see it themselves? How do I develop it? By giving them opportunities and extending trust to them to take on projects and to lead teams and to lead initiatives so they develop their capacity. And then how do I unleash it for the benefit of our customers, our clients, the marketplace, for our company? And so I am doing exactly that, Wes. I'm trying to unleash the capabilities, the talent that's inside of people. And I'm a leader because I see that. And I try to unleash it versus trying to contain it or control it, or maybe only seeing it in a few. The idea that there's high potentials and everyone else doesn't have that greatness. But I'm not tapping into the possibilities that's out there. So I'm saying this style of leadership, Trust and Inspire, unleashes talent and creativity and ingenuity and potential and capacity, greatness that people have inside of them in a way that command and control never can or will. And there's too much left on the table in command and control. You don't collaborate, you don't innovate, and the greatness doesn't come out. It might come out with some because they're just so strong, but there's many others that have it in them but but they need a leader who sees it and who creates the conditions for them to flourish. I liken it to like a gardener, and they plant seeds. Well, the power's in the seed. The life is in the seed. The gardener's trying to create the conditions for the seed to blossom. And people are like seeds. They have greatness inside of them. As leaders, we're like the gardener. We're trying to create the right conditions.
I think, Stephen, that goes back to so many retirees, or let's say less conventional than the 1950s and 60s retirement that was very black and white, work, and then not. Now it's very often that, or it's very common for someone to have a part-time job or some sort of maybe it's a hobby income, or maybe it's just much more part-time work in a field that they enjoy even more. Maybe the money's not where it was when they're in their peak earning years, but for the early retiree or any retiree that is working, let's say in some capacity, that maybe that's part of the plan. You're just suggesting that business leaders need to really take even more so this into practice to help that group or inspire that group, which is a very different group. They don't really have to work. They're doing this really for almost as one of their core pursuits in life as they get into early retirement.
Yeah, absolutely. So it applies to that group as well, that maybe I'll be more apt to want to do that if I feel like I'm doing something meaningful, something of purpose, something that matters. So, maybe I want to do it part-time, but the whole idea is that it's contribution, it's purpose, it's meaning, it's mattering. And I maybe want to matter. So if I can tap into that, that's the inspire part in trust and inspire. First of all, we want to be trusted that we can do this. We can figure it out. I've got someone that has my back and that believes in me, is giving me the chance to do my thing. That will draw people into doing it. And if we're one of those, part-time workers, we'll be far more likely to maybe work with a team or a group or an opportunity if people trust us than if they're trying to manage us. And where they're more coaching rather than managing and trust, extending trust to us. If we feel that, we'll be more apt to do that and want to do it. And then if you could add to it, not only being trusted, but being inspired, both because the people we're working with, they connect with us as human beings through caring and through a sense of belonging. So I'm part of something, I belong to something that matters, that's meaningful, and I feel a sense of caring. And also, if they connect us to purpose and to meaning, to contribution, to mattering, to why this matters, why this can make a difference in the world, that will inspire people. And when people feel inspired, they perform better. They have more energy, more joy, more happiness, more well-being, and they perform better. And everyone wins. And I think inspiration is the next frontier of the next level of engagement.
Inspiration, the next frontier of engagement. The next frontier. I like that.
It's, we've been focused on engagement, which is a good thing, and we're still there. But there's another frontier beyond engagement. That's to be inspired, not just engaged. Wow, that to inspire means to breathe life into. And so, it's not just motivation. Motivation is carrot and stick. That could be very much command and control. Nothing inherently wrong with it, but it works. It motivates people to want to get more rewards. But inspiration is like lighting the fire within someone that can burn on for years without having to constantly be fed. And because someone feels like what they're doing matters, that they matter. There's purpose. And so I think that's critical that we can tap into. And I even think for people who retire sooner, you might retire from your job. You might retire from a particular type of work, but we never want to retire from contributions, from, contributing to people and to society, because that's where there's great joy and fulfillment. So, and in fact, one of the reasons sometimes people want to retire sooner is so they can really do the things that they really love to do and want to do that may or may not be tied to an economic engine. But they want to do it. They have passions, they have interests. And so, yes, maybe retire from a job, but don't retire from making contributions.
I love that. Never retire from contributions. I love that. How would you say, Stephen, this goes? How do we apply this back to relationships? So it's our family and our friends, and how do you think this plays
Yeah.
into that? Because that's not, again, the relationship is not supposed to have ever been command and control. It's supposed
Yeah.
to. So how does this apply to that?
Yeah. Think about it. The happiest relationships we have, the best relationships, the most enduring ones, are those in which we trust each other, where people can
That's
trust
so
each
true.
other. In fact, if you think about it, the very definition of a bad relationship is distrust. I don't trust the person.
Yeah.
I just can't trust them, or don't trust them, that's how we would define a bad relationship,
Yeah.
is no trust. But that's no fun. It's not happy and joyful. It's not creative. But when there's trust, mutual trust, both because we're both trustworthy, but also we're trusting. That's where the greatest joy, energy is. And there's all this data that shows that people who trust more, they're happier, they're healthier, and they live longer than people who don't. And again, I'm not asking people to just blindly trust others. That's not smart. I call it smart trust. You got to use good judgment, and you assess the situation, and you assess the risk involved and the credibility of the person and the people involved, so that it's not just blindly trusting anyone and everyone. That wouldn't be smart. It's a smart trust, but it's basically saying, look, my bias, my starting point, my desire would be to extend trust. Now, if someone's proven
Yeah,
themselves not
I'm
trustworthy,
going to start by trusting you unless I'm going to, yeah, I'm going to start by trusting you unless I've proven otherwise.
exactly. That's my starting point in a relationship.
Yeah.
And I treat
Yeah.
people according to their potential, not just their behavior. And I tend to bring the best out in them, because to be trusted is the most inspiring form of human motivation, what it does to people. So if I start with that and give people a chance to live up to it, many will. If someone doesn't, and they consistently abuse the trust or take advantage, then at some point I'm going to say, I'm not going to trust anymore there. But it's a better starting point. You'll go farther, faster, it's happier. So this is the essence of great relationships, a high trust relationship. And the neuroscience on this is overwhelming, of how it creates energy and joy and happiness, fun. It's so fun to be part of a high trust team, a high trust culture. It's energizing. And low trust teams, low trust cultures, low trust relationships are exhausting. And
Yeah,
no
they're
fun
almost
at all.
paralyzing. They're paralyzed.
Paralyzing.
Yeah. Yeah. What about, Stephen, though, this is such an interesting word. It's the word trust is something that it feels like it's made up of so many little components over years and years and time,
Yeah.
that it's almost it's not inherent, I guess, because it's, or at least gaining someone's trust. Let's look at it that way first. It's not inherent necessarily because or maybe is it, because it's a series of I prove to you that you can trust me. Are there, maybe to repair trust or to be better at being trusted, are there behaviors that you believe that can either hurt, like what's the most damaging behavior to eliminate trust, and then to, on the other side of the equation, to build that trust? What behaviors could you talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. Your question is beautiful, because you can build trust on purpose, intentionally. And you can, just like you can lose trust, you can also gain it. And there's some behaviors that are more important than others that will build it faster or destroy it faster. And when it comes to restoring trust, here's the key principle. When it comes to restoring trust, you can't talk your way out of a problem that you behaved your way into. So if I've lost someone's trust because of my behavior, words alone won't get it back. The only way I'm going to get it back is if I behave my way back into trust. And it will take some time. And I've got to have someone also willing to let me do that, to behave my way back into trust. But I believe in most situations, maybe not everyone, but in most, it's possible to restore trust if we're willing to behave our way back into it. So that would include things like, practicing accountability is a behavior that builds trust. Owning it, taking responsibility. It's hard to restore trust with someone if you say, it's not my fault, it's theirs. You point the finger and blame. But when you say, look, this is my responsibility, we lost trust, I own it. That people are saying, thank you for taking that responsibility. But if it's their fault, so that's why we lost trust, it's her fault, his fault. That's harder to do that. But then after owning it, practicing accountability, I right the wrong. If you make it right when you're wrong. It might include an apology, especially in a personal relationship, or it might include making restitution, a legal concept to try to make it whole, make it right when you're wrong. And then I want to clarify expectations going forward of what I'm going to do to try to reestablish, regain, grow back the trust that I had lost. And then the most important thing, I now need to do what I just said I was going to do.
Follow through.
I make a commitment and I keep it. I make another commitment and I keep it. I said I was going to do it. I do it. I do what I say I'm going to do. If you consistently start to do that, it's possible in most situations to behave your way back into trust by doing what you say you're going to do. And so there's, some of those are the key behaviors. Maybe the fastest way to lose trust is when you make a commitment and then break it. Make another commitment and break it. And people come to say, look, I don't trust a word I hear from this person because they don't do what they say they're going to do. And you can't rely upon it. Another is when they spin or just flat out lie. They don't tell the truth. They don't talk straight. And so I start to wonder every time they're talking, I don't fully believe what I'm hearing, either because they're lying. But most people have learned that lying doesn't work. But the more common thing is that they do a counterfeit version of it. They're spinning.
Spinning.
Yeah, exactly. They're telling people what they want to hear, not the truth. And I've learned I just can't quite trust what they're saying. So actually in the Speed of Trust, I've identified 13 high leverage behaviors that build trust fast or destroy it fast. And I've named 5 or 6 of them. Talk straight, demonstrate respect, create transparency, right wrongs, deliver results, clarify expectations, practice accountability, listen first. It's a great trust builder. Keep commitments, maybe the biggest of them all. And finally, Wes, I'm going to say, extend trust. It's funny that one of the best ways to build trust is simply to give trust. Because of how when you trust people, they tend to trust you back.
Yeah.
And when you withhold it, they tend to withhold it. So we've got to be both trustworthy and trusting.
I think we live in a world that is, it's almost all spin. Like everything is spin.
Totally.
And I think that getting out of recognizing that is just so commonplace, that spin is a version of, you called it kind of a counterfeit.
A counterfeit.
And if we can get away from a world that just almost accepts everything as spin, to really be honest and forthright about anything that's happening around us in our personal lives and business as well, it does engender a massive amount of trust, taking the spin away.
Just taking the spin away. And it may be that at first it's almost countercultural in some organizations where everyone's spinning, but you be consistent with it over time, people will find it so refreshing. Because with everyone else, when they're spinning, they're discounting it. They're diluting it. They're taxing it. They're saying, that's what do they really mean? They're interpreting it. If you get known as a straight talker, straight shooter, you're just going to, use simple language, call things what they are, not sugarcoating it, not spinning it, then you start to get that reputation of just a straight talker. And you start to, that precedes you. You build trust faster. Hey, you'll be interested in this, Wes. Barbara Rittenhouse is a friend of mine, and she's in New York City. She's got what she calls the Rittenhouse rankings, where she takes the annual report letter from the CEO and analyzes it against this artificial intelligence-based criteria of how much straight talk is in this letter versus how much spin. how much, obfuscation, the fog that they're putting out. And then, but it's all artificial intelligence based against criteria. She can take all the letters and then she maps it up with how much straight talk it is, how much spin it is. And then she correlates that to their financial performance. And as you would expect, the CEOs that are talking straight, they're performing better. The CEOs that are not performing well. And the question is, which came first? The spin and the distrust or the lack of performance, and it's both. They're probably both in hand in glove. But the point is that, you move further in your career when you build trust, and you build trust when you tell the truth and call things what they are.
I can think about the most unspin letters would be from Buffett, right? Warren Buffett's annual letters. I bet they get a pretty high no spin grade.
High no spin. He's straightforward. He just calls it what it is. He'll say, "I blew it. Fault me for dithering and my mistake, my fault." He just owns it, takes responsibility, calls it like it is, even when he calls himself out.
Yeah,
and it's just so refreshing. But look at his reputation. You go in, he's trusted.
Yeah.
He's so credible because he'll even call himself out. It's remarkable.
Wonderful for you to be here with us, Stephen M.R. Covey. Thank you so much for your time. Your beautiful home from Sundance, Utah. Thank you for taking some time. I guess there's no more snow there, right? You're past ski season, so
ski season's ended at Sundance. There's still a few places where we got snow. A few resorts still open, but it's spring skiing, which is not always the best snow. But yeah, you're right. No, well, thank you, Wes. I love what you're doing. And again, I come back to, as an inspiring thought, hopefully for all of us, is yes, maybe retire from a job or something like that, but never retire from making contributions. Because in the end, life is about contribution, even more than accumulation. And sometimes we try to do things in order to continue to make a difference in the world. We need that in our world today. And that's a great empowering and inspiring thought for all of us is that we can live lives of great significance, making a difference, mattering, if we always focus on what's ahead of us. My father actually is coming out with a new book on this very topic. It was a book he was working on before he passed away, and now my sister is finishing it with him. And it's called Live Life in Crescendo. And the idea is that your most important work is always in front of you. It may not be a job, but it may be a contribution. And it could be as simple as a contribution to a relationship, to build that relationship with a grandchild or with a friend, that's a contribution. And to see life that way, that your greatest contribution is always in front of you.